First of all, thank you very much, Walter, for your time. Okay, it is really, really a pleasure that you are in this channel. Okay, let me explain to you. Mesa de Guerra is a group of war gamers. Okay, Spanish war gamers in general. We have also people from outside or other areas, but in general, Spanish people. And I would say that more or less we play all types of board games, so all the periods of the history. But basically, there is one period that we love, okay, that are the Napoleonic period, I would say, and more or less we play weekly, okay, and we use this channel, Mesa de Guerra, to play once per week in on direct, okay, two different groups, but also in some people of the group they play one against each other, okay, using Vassal module and logs, okay. The idea of this, I would say, interview or discussion with you is to talk to you first of all, to thank to you the whole series, but also to ask you, okay, about the present, the future of this system that we really, really love. Okay, let me do a quickly introduction. Okay, later on they have enough time to talk directly, but Sergio,
Yep.
he's the one that created this group. Okay, Sergio, so yourself, you can introduce yourself.
Well, this is Sergio. I'm from Cádiz in the south of Spain, and we have the blog Mesa de Guerra. And from the blog, we pass to the channel, and after for the Discord group. This is the place where I found these friends because for me they're friends right now, and we have a nice community around the Discord, the war games, and just Napoleonic mainly. Once per week, we usually meet each other and all the games. So everyone is welcome to this place to come here and play with us.
Okay, Santiago.
Hello, Walter. Thank you for being here. I am really excited to be here speaking to you. Well, my name is Santiago. I am a Spanish grognard. I've been playing Napoleonics since I was a youngster, and I'm very keen on your system. We will have time to talk deeply about it. And I am part of a community of Spanish players that are enjoying your system very much. I mean, I think the WhatsApp group is about 50 people, more or less. Yes, more or less 50
74,
people.
74,
74,
right now.
74
Yeah.
people. So I hope you have some good news for us about that stuff.
Okay.
Javi.
Hi, Walter. I'm Javi. I'm a teacher. I work with primary kids, and I've been playing board games for a long time now. But I'm just new into war games. But compared with these three other people here, I'm the worst of them. I don't know how to play, but I love them and they love me. That's why I'm here, and I'm going to be the one that is going to ask you the awkward questions. No, I'm just joking. So don't worry. I hope you have a great time here with us, and hopefully we will have another chat in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so let's start, Walter, with yourself. The first question is clearly a little introduction of yourself, okay? And again, if you can give us some details about how you started playing war games, which age, which was your early days in this hobby, etc., etc. So please.
Yeah. Okay, so I started to play wargame like I think a lot of you when I was a teenager. It was in in the 80s. I think I must have bought my first war game in 1979, something like that. In fact, I was very happy at that time to see that war game were existing, because before I was playing alone with toy soldiers, and I found that rules were existing and we could play more seriously battles. So I continue to play over 40 years now. And my first game were game from, of course, SPI, the old SPI Avalon Hill. Also, even before that, there was a French magazine starting to promote the idea of war game in France. It was called Jeux et Stratégie. And there was also, and my first box, war game box, was Italian company International Team, and the battle was Iéna, and it was already a Napoleonic battle. So I was in Napoleonic war game from the start, in fact.
Okay.
So what had also at that time, I started also on my two favorite themes. So the first one was Napoleonic, and after International Team war game, which by the way were not super good simulation, if you remember them, I started to discover the famous Napoleon Last Battle. So first time I played that game it was more than 40 years ago, huh? And since I must have played at least more than 100 times the full campaign, so it's a game I know in and out, and it's really and that's why the campaign of 1815 for me is so famous, because it's a game that I've played again. So and it is one of the drivers for me to do design of the series, is because I started to play Napoleon Last Battle. And my second, I would say my second favorite theme is, and we are not going to talk a lot about that today, but just to mention, is East Front. And my first war game on that was Panzer Group Guderian. And since then, I think I've collected and bought maybe 300 games on East Front. I have everything which exists in print on East Front, and I'm playing them. And in parallel with Eagle of France, I'm currently starting a new system for East Front, because it's another passion for me. It's wargaming of 41, 45 in the East, because battle are for me fascinating, and it's a campaign which I like to wargame. So that's my where it started. I think that of course for a while I've been playing the classics, War and Peace, for example, from Avalon Hill. I played so many games that the counter were not sometimes the leader counter were blank. So I played a lot of game of War and Peace, and after more and more games. And I think that the difference between 30 years ago and now is that in the past we were buying less game and playing them a lot. And today there are so many games on the market that sometimes it's difficult to play them all, and to play sometimes them at least once. And it's a problem, because my collection is more than 1,000 games now, and of course I know that most of them I will never play them, because I have no time. And on top of that, when you design game, it's sometimes it's frustrating, because you have no time to play the game of other people. You have to play test. You have to design your own game, and you continue to buy the other because you like them, but you have no time to play them. So that's just a comment for what is the trade-off of being a designer. But I'm not complaining, and it's a choice, and it's something I'm doing, by the way, for not for free, but nearly for free, because in fact I have another job, and I'm doing design not to make a living, and I'm doing that to contribute to the hobby, and investing my time on that to provide the game I would like to play, in fact. And the reason I started to design game was really because I wanted to play the game which were missing, for example. And the first game I've designed was in '94 for the French magazine Vaevictive. And it was on my second, I would say my second passion was East Front, and it was a game on Moscow 41. So it was a magazine game, a small game, but it was my first experience in design. So I did this game, and I don't know why. After for nearly 20 years, I stopped to design games, and maybe also because my professional career was not allowing that. And in 2012, I participate in a trip organized by Kevin Zucker. And you know
Yeah.
Kevin Zucker,
Yes, yeah, but really well.
for me, and he is the guy who designed Napoleon Last Battle. So he was the art designer of one of the games I have played the most in my life. So we sympathized together. He went home. We discussed, and he was organizing a trip to visit the battlefield of Waterloo. So I went with him and with the group, and you know it created a dynamic for me because you know, seeing the battlefield and discussing with a lot of other gamers, it restarted my willingness to start a design on Napoleon game, because of course I knew very well Napoleon Last Battle, but I knew that I like the game to play the overall campaign, but the game itself to play Waterloo, the scale was not the best scale because it was a 500 meter per X brigade level, and at that scale, the Battle of Waterloo is very small, in fact, and you don't really see the action. So I was frustrated and I say, okay, I have to choose between two extremes. Either you have Last Battle and the scale is too big, or you go to La Bataille, the system. Of course, I had all this game, but La Bataille system for me was too long to play, too detailed.
Yes.
And if I want to play the battle, I want to play the battle in 1 day or 1 day and a half maximum. But I cannot spend 1 month to play the Battle of Waterloo. For me, it was too detailed. So,
Walter, sorry. If you keep on explaining things, you are going to answer all the questions we have for you.
That's right, because I think that I was a bit also starting to answer some following question. But okay, I'm just finishing on that point to explain the reason I really restarted design is that I was looking for a game at the right scale between Last Battle of Napoleon and La Bataille. I was looking for a scale, and the games that were existing at that time at that scale were not fun enough or not realistic enough. In fact, I was not digging them enough to be, satisfied. And okay, I know that other people might disagree, but it was in 2012. I was considering that there was a missing, there was a gap. So I said, okay, if I want to be happy, let's start to build your own game and try to do something which will be at the right scale and with a system which I will consider to be the right balance. So it started. The floor
No, and that's great. That's great, and thanks for the. Well, I was going to say your introduction, but at the end it has been an introduction and an explanation, really great explanation of your history and how did you find and the way to start designing the system. Coming back to the system, because I think that we can directly focus on that. Santiago, if you want, you can start asking, okay, about the system, because all the other questions I think more or less have been answered.
Well, I have one previous question before talking about the system. because I think it's a question that everyone is making oneself. But Walter, over the last years, we are witnessing a great boom in wargaming. You know, today more war games are published than ever before. New games, new designers, publishers like you that have passed from a designer to a designer and publisher are emerging every day. What do you think are the causes or the main cause of this golden age, if we can call it that way, of wargaming? And do you think that this could have any drawbacks in the future? I mean, too many games for too many people, for few people.
Yeah. Yes. So my view on the fact that yes, it is it's right. It is a golden age for players because the quality of what is offered is very high. A lot of choice, a lot of quality game, and so from that point of view, it's a golden age. And the reason for the golden age also is that in the market today, you have a lot of people with an average age of, let's say, 45, 50, buying the game. And no, I'm 57, so I'm in the segment. I'm in the core segment, and I would say one of the consequences is that when you are that age, normally your purchasing power is higher than when you are 20. So you have a lot of all the players. The average player has a purchasing power which is much higher than when he was 20. So even if the number of players remains the same, the ability to buy games has increased because people have more money to spend. That's one. And second, in terms of that's for the demand. And for the supply has increased also because in the past you didn't have Discord, Facebook, etc. So a small publisher had no access to the market. Today, a small publisher has access to the market because there is Kickstarter, there is a lot of tools for small publishers to be able to exist. So not only the supply is easier, but on top of and the demand is richer. So richer demand, better supply. Of course, it is creating the situation that we see, which is, as you say, as a good side. But the flip side is that maybe at one stage, sometime I see some games that might have needed maybe one more year of playtesting, might have needed to have rules to be read another time, because what I don't like is to buy a game with the knowledge that in 1 year I will have an update kit to buy just to be able to play the game. Things like that were not existing in the past in reality, because in reality in the past there was less game, and okay, they were not all good, but they were maybe more stabilized than most of the game today, and maybe there is a bit of overproduction. And so I'm trying. I might fail, but I'm trying to take maybe more time to have a game on the market, but to avoid that the game is just a draft, and then the player playing the game are helping me to do the playtest, because normally when the game is out, the game has to be finished, and the playtest might take longer, but it's a choice. So I'm trying to be more on the I would say it's not quality, but more on being more finished, because I know that we are in a market where there are so many games that on top of that, if the game are not finished, there might be a kind of buyer fatigue at one stage, and people will start to hesitate or wait for the second edition of the game to buy the game in the finished form. So it's good, it's a golden age, but the danger also is to say that we need to have new player entering the hobby. We need to have younger guy entering the hobby, And again, one of the reasons for me to design several games, like for example, like Verdun, was to create games which were not, a big complex war game, in order to attract also players from the board game into the historical game. And I think that the hobby needs also simple game to have to be a gateway, a portal for a new player to enter the hobby. Because if we remain between us, 50-year-old playing a super complex simulation, there will be no second wave behind us, and it's a pity because I like the hobby, and I hope the hobby will continue in 20 years.
All right,
Yeah.
Walter. That's the thing. I think that when you finish and you put something in the market, it has to be finished. So that's great. I'm wondering if when you are thinking on a new design or on a new system, what are the things that you're willing to do? I mean, what is your favorite part of designing? And on the other hand, what are the things that you say, "Oof, I don't want to do that," or the least favorite things for you as an author?
Yeah. Alors, first, I can answer as a designer, and I can answer also as a publisher because
Yeah, that's the thing because I think it's different for
yeah.
as a designer of the game and then as a publisher. I think that this is different points of view.
Yeah.
So, what's the best and the worst thing for you?
Yes. Alors, the best as a designer for me is maybe two things. Is the first phase, the phase where you have the game in your head, and the phase which is really creative, the phase where you invent the system. Because there is a time where you are in your head thinking about the game and balancing some ideas. Is this one going to work? What kind of rules, etc. So
Mhm.
within of equilibrium that you make in your head to find a formula for the game. And that's something which I like because that's the creative process of design. And that's the best part of design. The worst part of design, there is a second good part of design. It is the time and it is the satisfaction that after some playtest, at one stage you feel there is a time when at one stage you feel that the game is there, the game is flying. So it's a kind of satisfaction time because you know that now I have it. It's working. And I remember for Fallen Eagle that one day I started with the prototype. It was in 2013. And in 2013, one day I play alone the battle, and I told me the system is working because it is replicating so well the battle as I know, as I've read a lot of books, etc. And I found that the dynamic and the momentum of the battle was being able to be played through the system. I say, okay, now my system start to be validated, and that it is of course a satisfaction feedback that you get after the creative effort. So that's the two good things. The negative things for design is writing a rule book, and that's obvious. But again, it's writing a rule book, and it is also and it's quality control. It's quality control, and it's there are so many small errors, small clarification that it's endless process, and it seems that it's never ending. So when the game, you believe that the game is done, and exactly. Let's say we are at the moment of satisfaction when you believe that the simulation is working. You know that you have a game. In fact, at that time, you have done only 40% of the work, because after 60%, which is remaining, is going to be, clarification, proofreading, a lot of things like that, which are absolutely necessary for the game to be played by others. But of course, for the designer, it's just work, and it is not a work which is super creative and super attractive, but it has to be done. So that's the bad part.
So you write your own rule books. I mean, you write
yeah.
them.
Yes,
You-
yes. I cannot have someone else doing it. I'm writing my rule books, but of course, after I'm asking other people to read it
Okay.
and to tell me if they understand and if that question. Because I think that I'm the best person to start version 1, but I'm the worst person to do the proofreading, because proofreading has to be done by someone not knowing the rule.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, you need someone who has never played the game
Yeah.
to see if he or she understands the rules. That's
Yes.
that's
And by the way, I think that when I look at Fallen Eagle or even Rising Eagle, and because between Fallen and Rising, there was a lot of mutation in the system, especially for the cavalry. The cavalry rules have been improved from Fallen Eagle to Rising Eagle, but from Rising Eagle, the system more or less remains the same. There was a very small variation between Rising Eagle to Fallen 2. So the system remained relatively stable, but I recognize that the way the rules, if you take the system rules as of today, I think that I'm not 100% satisfied with the rule clarity. I think that it could be better, and maybe for one release I will reorganize the rule for the rule to be even simpler to understand, even if I don't change the rules. See what I mean? Keeping the same rules, but maybe having a presentation which is, or example, which makes the rule maybe easier to understand. I think that for what they are, the rules are not super complex, but I think the rule book could be still better.
Just a question, Walter, about the rulebook. How is the main language that you use for the base? So, do you write in French and then translate it into English, or just you firstly write it in English and then translate it in French?
Or English. I start in English.
So the base rulebook that we can find where every single rule is in the base is in the English, right?
Yes, it's English. I'm trying to write in English first.
Okay.
To make sure, because it's easier when you are French to translate to French than the reverse. So I'm starting in English, and after I'm monitoring both. And by the way, I was very happy to see that rules were translated in Spanish. We'll discuss that later. I think that maybe there is a case for player aids, etc., to be done in Spanish and to be available in PDF going forward. It's Spanish.
Okay.
That's great.
Okay.
Well,
No, because sometimes there are some discrepancies. If you remember, I don't know if you remember, I asked you one question about the distance for when the turn is finished. Okay, how many X's can the whole leader, okay, and all the units that are related to that leader can move? No, and it was up to 4, or it was before that one. Exactly. Exactly.
In that case, you take the English and English rules.
Okay.
So if there are some discrepancies, the one that prevails is always the English, correct?
English, yes. But again, and that's something. If we discuss Halo playtesting going forward, yes, I will make a general appeal for all the small mistakes or clarification to continue to improve the rules. Because again, it's a never-ending process, but still we have to converge to something which is perfect. And if we have a lot of people providing me with stuff at the right time, because over the year, during the year, I have of course I have a day job, and then in the evening, as a publisher, you have to manage a lot of logistics, a lot of production, invoice, sending the box to the post office, etc. So things which are unrelated to what is absolutely interesting. And then when you receive a mail with with the question. You might answer the question, but you might forget to write that into the right place, not to forget for in 6 months later when you look at the rules. So that's so when I will restart the rule refresh on Elo, it will be time to send me everything and to recap. And I will also look at all the forum on Board Game Geek also to make sure that I'm browsing. I'm not forgetting something. So that's also. But it take a lot of time to do that. Huh? And
Okay, yeah. Okay, and we will do, and we will try to help you. Okay.
Well, what do you think if we start talking about the series, about the Eagles of France series
Shoot.
in depth? Starting with a question about the future of the series. For months ago, we have been getting some news about Eagles of France and new titles in the series like Eilao. What can you tell us about your future plans with Eagles of France, Walter?
Yeah. So, alors, first of all, the first thing I want to say is that I want to come back in force on this system with. It will depend of the support I will get, but I like at one stage to have one game per year or minimum one game every 2 years from now. So the idea would be to have Elo sometime end of 24, and after try to have another one the year after, something like that. Bon. It's so far I've been delayed by the launch of Fellowship of Simulation. Because to recap, I started as a designer for Fallen Eagle with Exatheme. Then I did Rising Eagle as a designer with Exatheme. Then Quatre Bras, Ligny, Quatre Bras. Bon. And after Ligny, I had a project to do a game for a wider audience with a block card-driven game. On the Battle of Verdun, and at that time, I used to become self-published and to create a small publisher to publish my game and start with Kickstarter. I did that because I wanted to really to control every stage of the publishing process, especially the marketing stage, and especially because for Verdun, I had the chance to have the support of a very famous cartoonist, Tardy, who agreed to give me all the illustration to have this game. Well, I don't know. Maybe I don't know if you saw that, but finally Verdun won very well, and Verdun won the best wargame of the year CSR award for 20. So it was a superb recognition because it could not be better. But I was even surprised to have this award. But it went very well. After that, I say, okay, now I did the game alone. It worked well. I might also help other people to have their game becoming a reality. And so I took other games for third-party designer. And okay, I was happy to do that, and I will continue to do that. But the point is that when you publish game from other people, you don't have the design time to spend, but you have a lot of proofreading, a lot of production, a lot of things to do, and it slowed me down on Eagle of France. So in 21 I did the Trench War. In 22 I did War of Religion. In 23 I just released Napoleon Conquest. I still have Vendée 93 to publish. So it's supposed to happen in the next 6 months. I have also a very small game, political games on the French Revolution, on 19th century, also to publish. So all these games, I'm super excited to have them becoming a realities. But the drawback for Eagle of France is that, of course, each day I 24 hours, and I have 2 lives, but I cannot have 3 lives at the same time. So at one stage, there is a limit. And of course, it has pushed back some personal project on Eagle of France, and it has pushed back also my East Front project, because I started the Kickstarter for Barbarossa in June 21, and the game is still not out. It's still in playtest. I believe it's a great game. It's a new system. It's the first time people will see Barbarossa with the right dynamic of Barbarossa. If you want, one day we can do a special session on why Barbarossa has not been treated well in the wargaming space. We can discuss that. I think it's quite interesting discussion. But again, I have this game in the pipeline. So I have currently 2 third party plus 1 East Front game in the pipeline to do, and then just after Halo. But anyway, if I want Halo to happen in end of 24, I will have to launch Halo this year in terms of playtest, and that's what will happen. So in fact, the idea is that now I want to come back on the series. I will prioritize much more than before Eagle of France. I will restart Halo, playtesting Halo on Vassal, etc. The map is already ready, and I will show you the map in a minute. The system, of course, is stabilized, so it's in a way quicker to do, because the system. I'm not going to invent a new system. We have the system. I need to think about some specific rules for the battle, but it's not like inventing a new system. I have the order of battle. It's already well documented. I have very good source. I have the map done. Counter can be done very quickly, so it can be up and running relatively quickly on Vassal. And after, I think we need at least 1 year of playtesting to make sure that the game is quite stable, that there are enough scenarios and variation for the game to be rich enough.
And
Yes.
And sorry, Walter, you are talking about Halo, but do you believe, and you are saying that it's quite easy, let's say like this, question mark, but quite easy to implement into at least Vassal and later on playtest. Do you believe that also this system is adaptable to battles like Jena, Asper, Wagram, or even the question that we were asking before, no? The Spanish battles, no? La Albuera, Bailén, Talavera. Do you believe that is something, and is in your plan also to increase the games of this system, or more or less which one is your idea about the whole system, the Eagles of France?
Well, honestly, I think that the system can be applied to any Napoleonic battle,
Okay.
anyone. The only question is that if you consider massive battle like Leipzig or Borodino, there is a choice. Let's say if I want to do Borodino, I have a choice. Either I can change the scale, not the scale of the map, but at least the scale of the unit. I can maybe have units which are sometimes bigger, let's say 2 regiments into one counter, because there is such a density in Borodino that you might argue that you might merge some units to have less units on the map, or to say, okay, no problem, it will be a monster battle and that's it. So and we can have Borodino with maybe a bigger map and more counters, and I would be maybe tempted for Borodino to do it at the same scale with more or less same scale of units. That is more or less one regiment per unit, on average. I think Borodino would be a big battle, but still, because of the system quality, which is to be quicker than most of the competition and be able to resolve relatively quickly events, I think that Borodino could be playable. Of course, not in one day, but could be playable with 4 players in a convention, and could be interesting. And I love this battle. But for Borodino, I had an idea. In fact, well, let's say the next game will be Elo.
Okay.
But for Elo, I have a choice. Either it will be only the Battle of Elo, and you have like Austerlitz or Waterloo, you have one box with Elo, one map for Elo, the counter for Elo, and that's it. Okay, well, that's option 1. Option 2 is to have what I would call 18-7 master box, where you have all the order of battle for the 1807 campaign.
Okay.
Okay. And inside the box, you have one map for Elo. And so you buy the box with all the counter, which most of them, 80% of them will be used for Elo, but still you have everything. All the it's like, you know, it's like leader, you buy beyond Elo and you have all the counter for East Front, huh? And then you have inside a map for one battle. And then other battle like Ellsberg, like Friedland, like other battle are modules that will be marketed later, where you would buy only the playbook, the map, and the specific rules, but all the counter will be already available in the Elo box. So you have one big box for the counter, and with one starting battle, the key battle. You have the key battle and all the order of battle, and then after you have the maps for subsequent battle in modules.
Yeah. So you more or less, there is one main box, and later on you can easily buy the maps on a Ziploc or something like this, and you implement into the box. But all the counters and the main rules are in the main box. And subsequently, you start buying maps. Yeah. And do you think that is something that you can implement the Spanish battles? So something like this, that the Peninsula main box, and later on you implement all the Spanish battles, or is not in your schedule to do something like this?
For first battle, I will tell you not a secret, but it's something which is personal. You know, I've been a fan of Napoleon since I was not even a teenager. When I was a young boy, I spent my childhood in Corsica. So you know, when you live in Corsica when you are young, Napoleon is already a legend. So I was always interested by the Napoleon, era, etc. And so, but you know, for me, the Peninsula War was such a shame, honestly a shame, such a shame for France, that in a way, when I read a lot of things on, you know, 1812, 1813, 1814, 1815. But every time when I was, reading books, it was never my Peninsula War was not my priority. It's not because it's like something I didn't like, because I disapprove, in fact, the fact that France did that to Spain. So for me, you know, it was a shameful war. And so it was not a battle. It's not a situation I was, you know, naturally inclined to study or to read about. Of course, I know now I read a lot of this battle. I've bought a lot of war game about Peninsula War. So for me, it's not something I don't like. I have the games, but I mean, as a teenager and as a young adult, when I was reading, I was not reading a lot on that. So that means that today as an amateur historian, because you need to be an amateur historian to design game, you need to have source, etc. I have a lot of source on Waterloo campaign. I have a huge source of Russian campaign, because again, I like the Russian campaign, because again, it's a bit shameful, but at the same time, there is such a kind of fantastic, it's such a crazy thing. It's really it's such an amazing campaign that it is something which is fascinating. In fact, the campaign of 1812 for me is fascinating. So I read a lot on that, and I read much less on the battle in Spain. So because I read much less, I consider I'm not very good at that, because to design a game, you need to know the battle, but you need to know the battle inside out. You need to know the dynamic of the battle. You need to know what could happen. You need to feel the unit and to feel the relative strength. And that's something I'm not very strong, for example, because I played few battles on Spain, but I think that I'm not the best person to do design for battle in Spain, or at least I think that I could relatively I could do a better job on battle from 12, 18, 12, 13, 14, 15, and maybe some Italian battle in Italy, which, by the way, I don't know very well also. It's not my specialty. I'm not specialized in the first Italian campaign, for example. Something I like to learn. But again, I think the system can simulate everything. And maybe one day, if I find someone who is very knowledgeable and want to do a module on a Spanish battle, I could discuss that, because again, the system is what it is. I think there is nothing to change. What is to be done to for example, for a battle in Spain is to have someone or a group of people knowing the battle very well, and proposing me an order of battle, and we can on Vassal test something. So, it's possible that, but I would need, especially if I'm talking to people like you, of course.
So
if you like to have a game, you have to help me, because alone I will not make it. That's my answer.
That would be great, because
Thanks.
we know a lot of people who is interested on just use your system and just apply to battles in Spain. So we can find someone to try these things. Don't worry for that. So let me ask you something. All the things that you have been talking about, the Eylau, the battles of 1817 and so on, which publisher is going to be the responsible behind it? Because do you still have a contract with Exasim, or are you going to be published by Fellowship of your own company, the Fellowship of Simulations?
Okay, to be honest, that's something which is to be seen. I've taken no decision today. It could be with Exasim. I don't want to ride alone just for the sake of it, because again, I'm not doing that for the money. So if I can find support, if I can find company helping me to be quicker, in fact, I'm willing to be associated with whoever helped me to go quicker on production and distribution. Because again, it's not my job to do that. It's not my job to do box and to sandbox and to print. It's not. I have to do it. I know how to do it, because I have been able to produce from A to Z now 4 games. So I know the process. I know how it works. It's interesting to learn, by the way, but in order to be able to have more games on the market, if I can have a partner to do that, I'm willing to do it. Now, if there is no partner, or if the partner is too slow, of course, I will go alone. But in any case, my objective is that I don't want the player to wait for nothing. So whatever happen, I would like Elo to be out or nearly finished at worst next year.
Okay, you can count of us. If you want to try with us the module of Basel, all the things, just send us all the rule book, the scenario book, all the things. You can count with this group, because we are, as we told you, 74 person, and we can try and we can help you.
No, I take your offer very seriously because honestly, I think that Spain is becoming. It's not becoming. I think is the first market for the system today, and I think that I will be very happy to be associated with you to play test this game. So let me share the map of Elo. So can you see?
Yes.
Well, so you see, it's the same scale. Huh? It's 200, 250 meter more or less per X. It's the same graphist, huh? It's the same guys that have done. You recognize the style.
Yes. Superb work.
And bon, so the map is done. So once the map is done, counter can be done very quickly because I have the order of battle. And then after, we need to test. And for Elo, of course, there is what is to be tested is I think that we need. Elo is a battle where casualty were very high. Okay, so if you take into account the fact that in the game, when one unit is eliminated in the game, that means that in reality, 50% more or less of the guy have been in casualty. Okay, but if you take that kind of rule more or less, huh, that means that in a Elo game of Eagle of France, in the history, the casualty was nearly 40% for the French army, something like that. Let me check. I don't remember now the exact. Let me check the.
It was a real carnage. Yes.
Carnage, but I'd like to say what is the exact proportion. Yes, it's loss. Yes, the French were 65,000. And they lost 5,000 dead, 24,000 wounded. So
Oh my
29. They lost nearly 50%, 45% of casualties for the French. Okay, 45% casualty for the French. That would mean, if we consider that when you lose one counter, 50% of the guy are in reality casualties, that would mean that 80-90% of the counter would be gone at the end of the game. So that might be difficult for people to understand why at the end of the game you have only 15% of the counter of the steps still on board. But that's what happened. It was a carnage. That is, in fact, the French army was nearly destroyed. I would say, after the wounded are recovered, etc. So half of the wounded are recovered, etc. But immediately, that means in terms of actual units being able to fight, having a fighting condition, if an army takes 40% loss, that means more or less that only 10 to 15 max% of the unit are still valid for combat at the end of the battle. So,
Walter, let me make you a question about Eylau. Eylau was a fierce fight amidst the snow and the constant blizzard and ice and very cold. Of course, not a very good weather for a Napoleonic battle, but how will you face that challenge in the rules, the weather conditions so extreme?
Yeah, so I'm thinking about special rules, of course, for the game. Special rules where, in fact, either it will be a general condition or it will be through even cards. That's something I still not have completely decided. But the special rules will make the fact that test, quality factor test, or even losses, or the ability for infantry to form square versus cavalry will be more difficult, because the units are deploying or moving inside the blizzard, and of course you imagine that in such conditions the ability to form lines, square, etc. are much more difficult. So you will have some more difficulty to move, more penalty in combat. routes will be, of course, also more likely because when something is going wrong and you are in the blizzard, you have more temptation to route. So overall, the unit will be more fragile and the formation will be more fragile, more difficult to control. So that's the special rule overlay on the system that have to make this battle, to give this battle a special feeling.
Great. Looks
Also, I don't
really
know.
good.
I think, Santiago, you have a second question about Halo, or I'm wrong?
Well, yes, I have a lot of questions about Halo. But, you know, in the series, there are games like Austerlitz that are much more grand tactical than others. There are more less grand tactical, more tactical. Like could be Waterloo, for example, that where the orders and how all the rules that you develop with the order system are less applicable. At Eilao, what scope have you in mind? More tactical or more grand tactical?
I think when you look at the battlefield, look at the map. You have the map. You see that given the number of units, I think that this battle will be relatively attritional, and I think that's. I would, again, at the end of the day, it's a situation which decide. We might, by the way, have a scenario, an alternate scenario where the starting position are not the same. Huh? But if you take the starting position, you might have some surprise effect with reinforcement coming more or less quickly. But for the two main army which are face to face at the beginning, I think that it's not going to be a lot of maneuver. It's going to be you are in front of the enemy, and 2/3 of the French army and 2/3 of the Russian army will have relatively limited choice of maneuvering because of the weather and because of the fact that they are already very close to each other at start.
Well, with the exception of Lestok and Ney, I suppose.
Absolutely. Yes, but you see what I mean. You have the bulk of the army already face to face, and yes, you have some variation, but it's more on the timing rather than on there will be maneuvering, of course, for and Davout also attacking on the right. We'll have maybe more room for maneuver and more creativity in maneuvers than the rest. But the center of the French line and the center of the Russian line probably will. But we'll see. We'll see. Again, I've not started to play the game, so that's something to discover together.
Okay.
Walter, have you ever thought of a solo mode for the system, where it's just you play in Schizo, or have you ever thought on a different?
It has to be Schizo because solo. Honestly, I didn't start to think about it for pure solo with automation. It could be possible. I think it's possible. It's possible because you can have, for example, scenario where defender is relatively static and you have a kind of a contract to do. You have to take a position. You have to take an objective. And you are in front of a defender which is relatively static or which has a script order. So solo mode is possible in theory. Again, I'm not sure it is I'm not sure it is a priority today for the system to have a solo mode. But it could be an option. I'm always I've limited time on a lot of different projects, and so the question is, do we prefer to have Finland quicker after Halo, or do we want a solo mode for Halo? That's at the end of the day, that is the question.
Okay.
Yep.
And today I think that because now Quatre Bras has been done a long time ago, and Fallen Eagle 2 is just a revamp. It's not a new game. I think that the system need more battles. And so I prefer to have more battles, and that's why I will try to do after Halo. I will try to do very quickly Finland just after, because it will use more or less the same. Either it will be a common box or it will be a add-on. But I like to have Freeland very quickly after Elo. Esberg also, it's a side battle. And the next project after this 1807 campaign, my second priority would be to have a big box for Borodino.
Okay.
A big box with all the order of battle, not only for Borodino, but for everything of the Grande Armée in 1812. So a very big box with a lot of counters, all the Russians, everything. And then you play Borodino. And because you have a lot of counters for other battle, after I will send some side games for Smolensk, for Maloyaroslavets, for a lot of side battle using the same bulk, the same mother box.
Okay, great. And related to this, Walter, one question that I wanted to ask you before. Have you designed your preferred battle of this system, or you have still in mind which one is or could be your preferred game of the system? Have you in mind, I would like to design this battle, yes or yes, and it's still not designed, or yes, it has been designed, I don't know, maybe it's Waterloo, or which one?
In a way, I started with the one I wanted to have for sure is Waterloo, and I wanted to, and what I wanted to have is what I've done already. I wanted to have a campaign for June 16. I wanted to have this Quatre Bras Ligny campaign because I like the uncertainty when you play the campaign in with the Fog of War. I like the idea that when you are the Prussian, you don't know if in front of you you will have diversion. You have the wall battle. I like the fact that you play Quatre Bras with the mindset of the people of the time, because in Quatre Bras, in fact, Ney did not attack because he was fearing to face all the English army. So that's why he didn't take advantage of the situation. And that's where most of the wargames are failing, because people know the order of battle, they know when the reinforcements are coming, so they know what people didn't know at that time. So I try to emulate this uncertainty of what do I have in front of me. It's not only the Fog of War because I don't see the strength of the counter, it's simply because I don't even know how many reinforcements are going to come in front of me. And that's the real stimulation. That when even on your own side, you know that something is coming, but maybe it will be delayed by 1 or 2 hours, and it might do the difference. So I like this dynamics of June 16. And when I was saying that I read tons of books on that period. And that's, for example, why I was very, confident to do something on that period. Again, as opposed to a battle in Spain, for example, where I didn't read enough to be confident enough to do a good simulation. So, in fact, yes, I did my mother campaign is 1815. But after the battle, yes, what I've not done and I would like to do, yes, is for sure is battle of the Russian campaign.
Okay, and clearly your system is designed with Fog of War, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We can apply now the Fog of War to any battle. There are battles which are more interesting with Fog of War. I think Freeland will be interesting with Fog of War because at the beginning, maybe you need Fog of War for the Russian to cross the river and to have a reason to attack. Because why should they attack if they are sure that they will face the whole French army? So for Freeland, for example, I think I will have two scenarios. I will have one historical scenario, so everybody know what is going to happen. Everybody knows, so there will be some artificial must attack rules at the beginning for the Russians, and they will be forced to move because it is what they did. But it's like it's scripted. And I will have maybe a pure alternate scenario where the Russian may decide to stay on defense because they believe that the French will not be there enough, and the French we can bluff because the French can decide not to engage a lot of units, and
Yeah.
if the French engage very few units, he will get a lot of victory points, and if the Russian does not attack because he believes that the French are going to come in force, he will lose the game. You see what I mean? Kind of bluff. You have to tempt the Russian to attack because the Russian has to believe that at the end of the day you don't have enough units committed. So that means the French order of battle might be variable in that case, and the Russian might have a real interest to go on the offensive first. So that's of course it's more difficult to design. It needs a lot of playtest, but again, it keeps the generals and the players on the same level. That is, I don't know exactly what I have in front of me, and that's why sometimes I'm doing an attack that historically was a mistake.
Okay. Well, Walter, I think that we have covered everything. I don't know if you would like to add anything else.
Yes, to mention that I will not forget in the future, so I'm talking about next 4 years, I will not forget a campaign in France in 1814, because I think there could be a good module with one box and a lot of different battle derived from one box. And of course, there is one battle I will like to do at one stage. Of course, because it's a massive one and it is fascinating. Is Leipzig also, because Leipzig is fascinating.
Leipzig.
And this one, I think that I need to do it one day.
Okay. We take notes, and of course, again, please let us know if we can help on any way, testing, playtesting, helping you on the Vassal module, translating that you were asking us, translating to Spanish the rule book, or even with some potential doubts about the rule book, something like this. Please let us know, because it will be really a pleasure to help you.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Walter, thank you very much again for your time. It has been really, really a pleasure for all of us. I don't know if any of you, Sergio, Santiago, Javi, or even Luis, that is here, you want to say anything else?
The only thing is just give you a big thank you, because this is just so interesting. We are going to drag you or just phone you for the next time, because we are going to invite you before ALO is published to show the people how it works. Again, thank you for coming. See you next time. And this is your home.
Okay. Well, okay. Thank you. I will not forget your offer for helping me on Elo. So I think that I need to have the counter done, of course, graphically, and to have a Vassal module. And as soon as the Vassal module is ready, by the way, we could also, if you have someone to do the Vassal, I could check with you. But at least I need to set a Vassal module. Let's keep in touch. And when Vassal module is done, maybe I think that around this summer, we could start to playtest starting this summer, starting to playtest element of the battle to be ready for the game to be printed and distributed sometime next year.
Okay. It will be a pleasure. Okay. Again, Walter, thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming, and we are in contact for coming months to continue playing and playtesting all what is needed. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good
Thanks.
night.
Cheers.
Thank you, Walter.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.